Alright, so I'm dedicating a whole video, whole section for the navigation options. Remember, we always get some navigation options for each screen because these ones are really cool and we can do a lot of stuff and we will gonna use it. These are, necessary, and they are a little bit weird with tabs. So I'm just gonna, just let you know how this works, how most of this option works, and you can know how all the others works. So for example, the tab bar visible is pretty much self-explanatory. You can set it true to false, and it will show the tab bar or not. Now, what you get with this one, it's a default way to do things, or you can do it on the screen. And we get pretty much the same thing with tab and with drawers, right? We go to this screen, just like we did before, we add the properties and the default navigation options just like we did. Or you can do it in a more default way with default navigation options. So first we're going to do the default, and then we're going to do, I'm going to show you how we can do pretty much the same thing, but on each screen. All right, so I'm going to go right here after tab bar options. I'm going to go at the bottom and say default navigation options. So this one, of course, we need to pass a function. I'm going to open and close. All right. So this one at the end, of course, it will return some object with all the configuration of what we need to add. Makes sense. Now what we get, and I'm going to do it just now, of course, when we go to a tab, what we are doing is just changing screens, right? We're going to a new route or a different route. So by default, you don't get access to what's going on right here. So by going here and using destructuring, of course, by default, you get the context of what's happening on your React navigation. So if you use destructuring and you access the navigation right here, this one contains all the information of what the user is doing, where is going, on which screen is trying to go, and everything else. So we're going to use this object in a minute, don't worry. So let me go to an easy one. We get, for example, the tab bar on press. So with the tab bar on press, whenever the user taps on an option, this one is going to trigger. So what we can do, we can catch that on press, maybe analyze where the user is going to go with the navigation, and then do something. Don't worry, I'm just going to show you right now. It's a little bit weird, but I'm just going to show you. So first I'm going to do tab bar on press. Now I'm going to, of course, open and close. So this one, it is a function. So I'm going to open and close. Now let me do this. And I'm going to do this navigation, but I'm going to call it, I'm going to bring this navigation from here. And then, of course, we're going to do something. Let me say alert and navigation. I'm just going to bring the navigation. All right, and that's it. That's the only thing I'm going to do. The default option is going to be listening for a tab bar on press. And whenever we tap it, it's going to show whatever we get from this navigation object. So I'm going to go to the device. I'm going to tap on this one and we get an alert of object. So we get data inside of there. So okay, so what can we do with this? And let me show you an example. This is one of the things you learn by example. Inside that object, we get access to where the user is trying to go, right? If it's clicking and tapping on users, it means that he wants to go to users. So what I can do, I can say, okay, so if and else. Just going to give you a dumb example. So if the user is trying to go to, we're going to access that navigation we are importing right here, we are bringing right here. Then I'm going to say, okay, I want to enter the state and I want to access the key. So inside of the state.key, it's the name of the component they want to go. In this case, for example, if it's users, it's going to be the name of the screen, users. So okay, I'm going to say, okay, if they want to go to users, I want to do something right here, right? I want to just do something. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to, for example, first let the user go to navigate. I'm going to let the user pass and go to users. Right now, I'm just not doing anything. I'm going to say users. I'm going to reload the application and see what happens. So if I go to users, I'm going to the user's screen. But the default navigation, it's not doing this by default. It's doing what I'm telling. So if I say home, for example, instead of going to users, is going to get kind of a redirected to home. Notice that I click it and it's staying on home. So okay, right now we are not doing anything. So what happens if I select this, right? I reload the application, go to users, and then go home. I'm going home and nothing happens. And it's because we are only we are kind of catching this event, and we are passing kind of a custom way to do things. We are telling the application what to do when we go to users, but we are not telling what it's going to happen when we go home. So if we go to the docs, it says default handler, the default handler for the press tab. So by default, of course, the application sends you to just navigates, redirect you to the real component. If we go home, we should be going home. But again, we are kind of blocking this. And if we use the default handler, default, and then handler, just like this, and handler, let me do it again, handler, there we go. By doing this, it's going to say, okay, if the user is on users, we're going to go here. But if the user is trying to go to maybe a different spot, and let me just copy from here just to make sure, we want to use the default handler of React navigation. So of course, it's going to go to the default place, which is home in this case. I'm going to reload it. If we go to users, we go to users, and if we go home, I made a mistake. And it's because we need to bring it from the top. Sorry for this. I'm going to do comma, and I'm going to bring the default handler. Right, we need to bring it from the context. So I'm going to reload the application, and now we're going to try again. I'm going to go to users, we go to users, and we go home, we go to home. Now again, how is this useful for us? Well, maybe what you want to do is that whenever the user goes to users, you want to do something else in between. Maybe you want to make a network request. Maybe you want to change some of the configurations of the phone, or whatever is that you want to do. So if you run some JavaScript code right here, could be anything, that is going to trigger first, and at the end is going to do whatever is that you want to do. Go to users. So maybe you want to check, and maybe a useful scenario would be to check if the user is really authenticated, for example. And if you want to go to users, you're going to first check if he's good to go, and if it's not, he's not allowed to pass, you're going to navigate the users to the login screen, for example. That could be one scenario. Right, pretty cool stuff. Right now, the only thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to let the user pass. Just going to pretty much leave the default, and I'm going to leave this here, so you can have access to this one. And I want to talk about something else. Right now, we get the users, and we get home, and we get the label. But what I would like to do, I would like to show an icon. So I'm going to go at the top and import that icon. So import, I'm going to call it icon from // we go to src, we go to the images, and we bring the same name I'm not getting. After the section, I'm going to install a plugin, and I'm going to let you know what I'm going to do, so we can get the the names and everything else. All right, so this is the icon I want to show on the tabs. In real life, you're going to get different icons for different tabs. Yeah, makes sense. I'm just going to show you how you can set this up. So if we go on the to docs, we get the tab bar icon. So this is the property that will handle the icon that goes inside. And by default, you get some properties: the focus, the horizontal, and the tint color. So you can access this ones and make some changes on each particular tab icon. All right, so I'm just going to use it and just let you know how you can use it. So first, we need to declare type icon, and this one, what it's going to do, just like the tab on press, it's going to be a function that it's going to do something. Then comma, and we put it right here. Now on this one, we are accessing the navigation because we are doing something very particular. So if you want to access the navigation on pretty much everything that you can use right here, you can import it at the top on the default navigation options, and this will be available inside of all the properties. Right. So like I told before, you get the focused, the horizontal, and the tint color. So you can bring it right here at the top if you want to use it. I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to show you something else, but I'm just going to put them here so you can know that you get them. All right. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, every time we just render a tab icon, what I want to do, I want to add an icon here. I want to tell the application that this one needs an icon. So the tab icon says that React element or function. So we can pass a React element, just like we did before with the image. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to return, and I want to return an image. So image, and make it a self-closing tag. I think we don't have an image at the top on the React, so we don't. Let's bring it from the top. I'm gonna go here and say I want to import the image, and it's gonna be from and then React native. All right. Okay, so now we can use it. Let me go back again. So what we are gonna do, we are gonna return just an image, and this is gonna happen. This tab bar icon is gonna happen on all the tabs, right? It's gonna add an icon here and add an icon here. And if you have 10 tabs, it's gonna do it for all because we are doing default navigation options. Okay, so let me just show you, and then I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna be passing the source of icon, and pretty much just like we did before, I'm gonna add a style of width of 30, and I'm making a mistake with this. All right, and then the height of 30. All right, and that's it. Now notice that this tab icon, it's returning this, so we need to return something. So if we reload it, we kind of get the icon. It's a little bit ugly, but we kind of get it. Right, so let me expand on this a little bit on this. Right now, of course, on each tab, we are adding the icon, and we know that. But in real life, what you would want is to add one icon for users, maybe a different one for home, and a different one for maybe a different tab. Now, if we go to the documentation, let me see if I can find it. They give us an example right here of how you can do it. So, for example, it says tab bar icon, and it's just doing an if else. I'm not going to do it because we don't have a lot of icons. So, for example, it says, okay, if the route name is home, I want to bring this as an icon name. It's just bring it a different icon. And at the end, the only thing it's returning is just an icon component. And this one, the icon component, it's something that we get from vector icons, from ionicons. We're going to talk about this later. But again, we could kind of replace this one with the image we have right here. We're just returning an image with an icon. Now, you can, of course, run some logic before it returns something and change the value of this icon to, I don't know, the icon of home, maybe the icon of settings, the icon of profile, whatever icon you're going to use. Now, the catch right here is that we run this tab bar icon for pretty much all the tabs. So we are always getting the same icon for each route. And we get the example right here, but I'm just going to break it down for you. So we need a way to let the application know, or get from the application on which section we are. So the default navigation options is going to run this tab bar icon on each tab. So the first time it loads, since the default is home, is going to go to home, run this this code, and it will add the icon. Then it's going to go to the next route, which is going to be users, and it's going to go again through this option. It's going to add the icon to that user. So this one, it's kind of doing a for loop. It's running tab bar icon on each different tab. So again, we are running this several times. Now what we can do, just like what's happening right here, we can, on each time that we run this, we can say, okay, if this section it's users, for example, we want to do something. And if the section it's home, we want to do something else. Just what is happening right here. If the route name it's home, we change the icon name. If the route name it's settings, we change the icon name. And at the end, of course, we return it. Now, the thing is that you need a way to catch the name of the route. And right now we are doing navigation state.key. You have a different way called route name. I'm just going to copy this and paste it right here at the top. So we are entering the navigation that we are importing, we are bringing from the default navigation options from the context. We are accessing the state, and we are bringing the value that calls route name. So now, of course, what we can do an if else statement or whatever in this case. And you can check, okay, so if the route name it's equal to, I don't know, users, which is the route we get right now, users, we are gonna console warn, just to show you that something happens on the screen, users icon. And if not, you're gonna get by default the home. All right, so if I run this, it's gonna check the route name, and the first time that it runs is not gonna be users, it's gonna be home, because that's the first tab. And then it's gonna go to users. So let me just show you this. I'm gonna reload the application, and first we get the home icon, the first one that it's running, and then we get the user's icon. So you can of course replace the icons and at the end just show whatever it is that you want to show. Now again, this is the very convenient way to do things because you do everything on a single spot. You get a different way to do this to add the icons, which is on pretty much the default navigation options of the actual screen. So you can do all of this logic, but on each screen when you define the screen. Let me show you how this works. So I'm going to pretty much copy all of this because it's, again, the same logic. The thing is that we will define this logic on each route. So I'm going to go to home. I made a mistake. Sorry, let me go back. Of course, I'm going to bring home, just like we did before, the default navigation options for each screen. And this one is going to be the screen. All right. And then, of course, comma. And we're going to do navigation. Let me see if I can get the... No, I don't get it. Navigation and then options. I'm going to do open and close. Again, this one, it's a function that returns an object. So what we can do, again, just like with the default, we can access navigation. And I'm going to say, okay, so I want to bring the tab icon with all its properties, and we get the route name from navigation, and then we just return an image. And that's it. That's going to work. So if I comment this out, let me just comment everything, and we reload the application, we get pretty much the same behavior, but it's only happening on home. So again, you get two ways of doing this, and this is completely up to you. You can do a default way, do kind of a switch or an if statement and change the icons, or you can define this on each route. If you ask me, I much prefer doing the default navigation options because you just handle everything on a single spot, right? On a single property. The only thing you need to add is a switch or an if statement, and that's it. The other way, you just need to write the tab bar navigation options on each element, and it's not that fun. Okay, so we are pretty much done with this. I want to talk about something else because right now we can do a stack navigation or a swipe navigation, the drawer navigation, or a tab navigation. So we get a way to kind of make a combination of these different types of navigation. So let's go to the next one, and I'm going to show you how you can mix maybe with stack and tabs and a side navigation.